What is up, people? You are listening in to New Generation Hero Talk. I am your host, EJ Stewart. We got an awesome show lined up for you guys today. Massive, massive, massive news going on with the world of Daredevil. We had the first 3 episodes drop. The first episode dropped last week. We had just this past week. We had the episodes 2 and 3 drop. So there are 3 new episodes of Daredevil Born Again Season 2 out. Getting off to a pretty good start in my eyes, and I'm excited to hear what my guys got to say about it. So we'll talk plenty about where Daredevil stands 3 episodes into this season. Also, mega news regarding the future of Daredevil Born Again Season 3 and the return of some characters that could be showing up real soon. So I'm going to leave it there only because of a spoiler aspect. When we get to the Daredevil aspect of that conversation, I want you guys, if you don't want to know what's going on in Season 2 or don't want to know what's going to happen in Season 3, then maybe that's a spoiler conversation that you'll skip over. But big news happening with the world of Marvel's TV world regarding Daredevil Born Again, both for Season 2 that's currently out, the first 3 episodes now out, and also Season 3. We'll also talk about what is the future of Sadie Sink in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We got some increased speculation / confirmation that she will be playing Jean Grey in the upcoming Spider-Man movie and the upcoming Avengers movies that will be coming out in the next 2 years. And some more details about kind of what her outlook looks like for the future in the MCU and how Marvel is planning to center her as a primary figure in the upcoming new saga post-Secret Wars. And then finally, we had a Supergirl trailer that came out last week as well. I talked about it a little bit on 40 Days in County if you check out that podcast, but now it'll be good to have a full breakdown with the full crew of New Generation Hero Talk here to discuss all things Marvel and DC. And this is going to be a fun show. And joining me on my co-host, starting with Shamari Stewart. Sham, what's happening, man?
Hey, EJ, what's going on? I know, we have a busy month coming up. I know you got a lot of things coming up. You got a birthday coming up too, so looking forward to celebrating that.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah, man, look forward to talking Daredevil. And of course, news surrounding Daredevil. So I do gotta let you guys know. I didn't know 2 episodes dropped last week, or that 2 episodes dropped. I thought it was just episodes 1 and 2.
So you didn't go to the 3rd episode that was there?
No, I just left. I just left the app because I'm like, oh, they're dropping an episode a week. So I watched the episode and I
Interesting.
left.
Wow.
Yeah, they didn't make. I mean, look, and look,
Yeah,
maybe I'm
That's
tapped
crazy.
out. Maybe I'm not as like synced into whatever they're. Because part of me is like, they should have been pumping that. Were they pumping that out? Like, oh, we got 2 episodes this week, guys. You gotta watch the episodes. Because I didn't even know.
So there's a larger conversation about Marvel's marketing of a lot of their Disney Plus stuff, but Daredevil specifically hasn't been great that we can certainly talk about. But
also,
there was a lot of confusion.
That's kind of strange. Why'd they release 2 episodes?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of a show releases 2 episodes in week 2 and 1 episode in week 1?
Now, to be clear for those at home, this is the only week where there are going to be 2 episodes dropped. Every other week will be just 1 episode. I think there's some of this had to do with when they were putting out Punisher as well. That could have something to do with this.
They wanted to make sure it pushed up a week.
Yeah, because this has to come out before. This has to be finished before Punisher comes out. But yeah, no, I mean, I knew this was 2 episodes this week. I mean, cause I saw the release schedule, and they said 2 episodes in week 2. I was like, all right, cool, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, that's one of those things. If you've got a bunch of Daredevil, stuff on your social media, it was being pushed. But yeah, the episodes had a little bit of connective tissue, so I think it made sense in some degree.
Yeah, it made sense to
release
those 2 back to back for sure.
Okay. I don't know, Shamari, if you want to drop out, let me EJ talk about it, or if we were just go non-spoiler.
Yeah,
unless you guys want to go non-spoiler. I mean, whatever you guys want. I mean,
I honestly, I'm struggling
don't want
to
spoiler.
remember.
So if you guys want spoiler, then I gotta drop.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
I'm struggling to remember what the difference was between episodes
yeah,
2
the
and
problem is
3.
I watched them back to back, so in my head I'm just thinking like, how do I approach a
Yeah, what
episode like,
happened in 2
yeah, what
versus
happened
3?
in 2 that didn't happen in 3? Like, now I feel like I have to have like the recap up in order for me to know that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it might be easiest to have that section be a EJ and Kendall conversation, and maybe bring you in for the second part of the Daredevil conversation. Um, but
All
I
right.
do want to get maybe your thoughts on episode 2, maybe before we bring you back in. First of all, Kendall was here as well. Obviously, Kendall joined the podcast here. Happy to have Kendall. He knows that he's. I'm assuming you saw both episodes. So that there were
I
two
did.
episodes. So
I
yeah.
got lucky. I had the autoplay saved me.
We had to make sure Shamar had the autoplay next time he's on this. But Kendall, before we get into stuff on Daredevil, what were your thoughts on anything going on, and how excited for you to have this episode today?
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about the Sadie Sink conversation.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna have a explosive take. I don't know if it'll be super explosive, but
Okay.
me and our brother Henry, we had a conversation about this earlier in the week, and he's heard my little monologue, so I'll expand on it. But very interesting situation going over there.
All right. Well, monologue and interesting explosion. A lot of different exciting words there to describe Kendall's thoughts on what is the future of Sadie Sink in the MCU. So we got a lot to get to, man. This is gonna be a fun show. EJ, Shamari, Kendall, rock with you here on New Generation Hero Talk. Of course, you can find these episodes wherever you get your podcasts, searching New Generation Podcast Network. Just search Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or TuneIn, or again, wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, I'll post it on the New Generation Media YouTube page as well. Make sure you give us subscribe, and make sure you like this video if you can. We greatly appreciate it. I want to ask you, Sham, before we hop you off and then we bring you back later. You watched obviously the first half of Daredevil, the 2 episodes that they dropped from this past week. So you watched the first 2 episodes of the season. What have been your outlook on how you've seen the first 2 episodes play out?
I think they're pacing the drama with Fisk a lot better. It doesn't feel as kind of just such a very slow, long burn. It feels uh, like this is all just very dangerous immediately. And I think the action has been great. Uh, you know, I just, Bullseye, Dex in this show
Gotta
is
talk
just,
about
it's
him.
just fantastic. He's just been fantastic since his introduction in season 3, and he was great last season, and he's great this season. So the more he's involved in the show, the better. And the action has been great, and the black suit is fantastic on Daredevil.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just think just the pacing and the suspense, like they have me hooked in already. So it's been fantastic. Honestly, the show's been great so far.
What has been anything that you've seen so far that you're hoping to see them dive deeper into, or anything that maybe you feel like they're not hitting on as strong? While I know you said you liked it, but and maybe there's nothing that you think they're doing great. But if there is anything, is there anything that you'd like to say? I want to see them go deeper into like a certain kind of story point that you're following closely.
Not really. I mean, I guess they could. I mean, I think I would say Fisk has felt very one. If I had to pick on anything, I mean, I guess nitpicking, but Fisk has felt very kind of one dimensional, I guess, so far, and this probably goes also into last season as well. Whereas I feel like in the Netflix series, I feel like they delved into his psyche a lot.
Right.
And it was just, and maybe maybe there is more story to tell. I don't know, but
Sure.
that was a big part of like what I think made his character so great in the like Netflix run. Whereas here, he's mayor, he's behind the desk, he's very angry. He wants to get Daredevil, he wants to get Matt Murdock, and he wants to hide his crimes. And that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of just the situation. And he's threatening anyone that threatens that. That's kind of it.
Right.
Which I mean, again, D'Onofrio is amazing. It's not, he's great as Kingpin, so I'm not complaining at all. But I'd say maybe more with him, even if it involved like Vanessa or what have you, like just more involved with him, and maybe they do in the next episode. Obviously, I don't know, but
Sure.
just that's probably the only thing so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think that becomes like the slippery slope of like their decision to make this a continuation, because it kind of goes into like, all right, well, what do you guys want? Like, if you want it to be a continuation, well, you know who Fisk is, you know what his motivations are, so
Yeah.
like I gotta save this city, thing, and how personal that is to him. Like, do we need to do all that over again when you watch the first 3 seasons of Daredevil? Kendall, I think that is something that I've seen made as part of a criticism. Like, the one thing I will say, and doesn't, none is a spoiler, Sham. So you can still
Mm-hmm.
be in here with Fisk. I've like pushed back pretty strongly on this notion that Fisk is too akin to Trump. Like, that's been a big thing I've seen, is that like this feels just like, oh, they took what's happening on the
lazy
news.
kind of thing.
Right, they took what's on the news, they just made it, apropos to what's happening with Fisk. It's just nonsensical because it doesn't match the timeline of when this show was being made. At the end of the day, like, this show was written before Donald Trump was reelected to office. Whatever you think of him, if you think this is an interpretation of how people interpret his presidency, they're just the aspects that we're seeing when it comes to ICE, which was not really as prevalent in the way they've been in this current administration, it wasn't the same in the first administration. So they're not taking from the first Trump administration. People are saying, "Oh, feels too akin to what's happening right now." This is one of those things where I think life imitates art. Like, I think it's just one of those things where that's what you see, that's just what you see. Like, that's just kind of how reality plays with terms of how you write authoritarian, martial law kind of a rule. Like, that's just kind of how it is. And politicians, that's just the reality of it. So, a lot of people have said, well, this feels too much like Donald Trump. I'm like, well, if you're talking about someone like Wilson Fisk and he has this vendetta against vigilantes, how would you think he would approach it, and what would that look like? I feel like it would look a lot like this. If it feels like it's too akin to what's happening in the world, then maybe your beef is with the world, it's not with the show. But just from a logistical standpoint, Kendall, it just isn't saying, oh, that's what happened on TV, let's make them look like ICE. It's not. It's literally impossible for that to happen. So, like, people keep saying that. I'm like, if that's your beef, then again, your beef is larger than Daredevil Born Again. Your beef was something totally different. That's a different conversation for this show. I think it speaks to how powerful the show is, that it is giving you that resonation without it being a direct inspiration. I find that to show how effective the show has been.
Yeah, I remember last season. I remember listening to Fat Man Beyond with Kevin Smith and Mark Bernardin, and they were having the same conversation. Season 1, being like, "Man, isn't this bugged? How, like, this was at the time? It was like, Trump was just coming in to office, or and so it was like, even this bug, like this, this show is filmed like he wasn't even in office yet, and it feels like we're living this thing out in reality." And so you're right that a lot of this isn't, is totally happenstance. Like, their idea of doing the anti-vigilante task force before this ICE thing became a a center of the conversation type of subject. And so is it spooky and clearly very similar? Of course. Of course they could take cues and stuff from the first, the Trump administration, and take from that a little bit, but in terms of I don't think that this is like a parody, right? I don't know if I don't feel like I'm watching SNL or something, and I got Alec Baldwin trying to do a Trump impersonation. Like, it feels very much like this is what Wilson Fisk would this is what happened if Wilson Fisk was mayor, right? And he wanted to take a very authoritarian approach to it. And this is what happens when you have mob. A lot of times people will talk about some of these authoritarian regimes, they say it feels a little bit like a mob boss mentality, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what obviously Kingpin's going to bring, the approach that he's going to bring. So I don't certainly don't use it as a criticism. I definitely see the comparisons. I
Yeah.
think they're fair. But I don't think it's a situation where it's Chat GPT writing and they're just
Yeah.
like it's lazy. They just put something together without thinking about it. I think they did, and I think this is how it came out. Um, but like you watch something like The Boys, and it's like okay, they're obviously very clearly trying to imitate some of the things that we see in our political landscape. I don't think that's exactly what's happening here. Some of this is just reality, right? Like some of this is how politics works. And so yes, you're gonna have things that happen in real life imitate, what's happening in the in the show.
Yeah.
Because this is what politics is. They're not it is Marvel, but they're still trying to work within the confines of, the United States government and like, state governments and whatnot. So this is how these things work. But yeah, it doesn't bother me. I mean, I think it's been really, like you said, I think it's been really strong how they've been able to tie those two things together while it's seemingly being unintentional.
Yeah. And one more thing, Shan, before I get you out of here, and then we'll have you back in for the second half of the Daredevil stuff, on kind of where Matt stands at this point in the show and where he's gone. So, like, as you've seen, like, he's essentially now full-time Daredevil. There is no Matt Murdock. There is no him, running the law firm,
Mm-hmm.
having clients. Like, he's full-on Daredevil, living, in the attic of Josie's with Karen. How have you interpreted kind of his development as a character and where kind of he stands now, and kind of how he has centered his mission in this attack and this revolt against, or revolution against Fisk, and how he's managing that?
I think it's been really compelling. Um, I mean, it's like it's a uh, like it's cool to see because we get I feel like we're just getting more Daredevil because there's less Matt Murdock. But it's also consistent in that it's following the story, right? Like after he got shot and all that, and you know, was like missing basically. Um, now he is gone essentially, and it's just Daredevil, and it's been it's I guess that's one of those, I don't know if I call it a trope, but it's one of those things where the hero's on the run, and he doesn't know where to go, doesn't have nowhere to go, but he's still kind of doing his thing, still trying to help people. Like that's just always kind of fun to watch I mean, it's gonna sound kind of simple, but I guess you get less of the boring kind of house stuff. Oh, me and my home and my dog and my wife and this. Like, no, he's just a hero. He's just a vigilante. So it's cool. It's cool to see. I think it's a cool story point. So yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Awesome, man. Well, Sham, I'll
That
put you aside. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Kendall.
No, I was just gonna say I thought Shamari made an interesting point. There's one thing that we've seen less of this season is just Matt Murdock in general, which last season was one of the biggest criticisms that season one had was felt like the whole show was a Matt Murdock show,
Yeah.
and in this season that hasn't really been much of a thing, right? And clearly, is that intentional? Is this feedback? They're listening to feedback. Of course, we knew that they took plenty of feedback on making the show more like the Netflix show, but this show has made it intentional. This season has made it intentional to
Yeah.
dial back the Matt Murdock everyday, everyday life, type of show.
Well, the first season, and the show was pitched as a law procedural, and
Yeah,
that
Mhm.
just means you're not getting as much Daredevil, just in principle, when you present something like that. And this show is not that. It's not that anymore. This is a brand new vision. This is different than whatever you were told about what Daredevil Born Again was going to be. Um, like the first 3 seasons of Daredevil, the Netflix show, like I think there was a pretty good balance of Murdoch and Daredevil. But as we've noted on this show a ton, like some of the Matt Murdockness of it felt like in a lot of times it was holding him back. Whether it be like having to try to appease Foggy or appease some other person, um, or sometimes like it getting away of Daredevil's story and Daredevil's character development. And You know, sometimes I think in many ways some people maybe wish that we didn't have so much of the things holding Matt back be such a large part of the story. So right now you don't have those things anymore. The only thing that's holding him back in regards to Matt Murdock is just that he can't be seen as Matt Murdock. That's the only thing, is that he can't change his face. He can't literally be a different person. That's the only thing that's holding him back as a vigilante or someone who's trying to seek justice, is that he just can't be seen as Matt Murdock. Otherwise, that would blow up the whole game that he is playing. The last thing I'll say, Sham, before I get you out, because you've seen this part of it, I think the one thing I have liked about Murdock is, in terms of this mission of him being Daredevil only, is how kind of they ended the last season. In that, like, I like that they're, initially they kind of present things in a certain way, like, oh, like everybody's really happy with Fisk, and people are okay with this, and we see it's a very unique. I thought it was very unique storytelling to present this from the side of like corrupt media. But it doesn't necessarily look corrupt in general. It looks like it could just be anybody. Of course, it's through the BB over kind of reports or whatever. And it gives you the impression, does we really like this stuff? But first of all, the idea is that, again, talk about life imitating art. Like, some people do like authoritarian regimes. Like, that's just reality. We've learned that, right? So, I've liked how we've seen, despite what may be prevalent via what they present, that Murdock, it should be Matt. I mean, Daredevil is actually, he has made some grounds in this war. Like, there are only small victories, but like there are people who help. There's the woman with the restaurant, with the Greek restaurant, right? There are people who say, oh, I want to talk to Karen. I gotta do this and that. Like, we know that this is not like, oh, he's been Daredevil, but like he's not actually doing anything necessary to really beat Fisk. He's not getting help from people. He's not getting. We're not seeing any of that work be done. Like, we actually see that work being done. To the point where you're like, okay, like, you're not clamoring to be like, oh man, we really could use Matt Murdock at this time. Like, right now, he only can be Daredevil, and it seems like he's making the most of that. So I thought, Sham, that was something that I'd like to see. We know his relationship with Cherry, but all the other folks that also make impacts into the first two episodes in the show and how they relate to working with Karen. It's like, okay, there is a network, there is a revolution that is beginning, and it started with Daredevil. And even though he's been confined to only being that persona, he's actually done good work with this so far in this war.
Yeah. I mean, it's been very compelling seeing his kind of community come together, and I think that was a very, very significant part of the finale from last season that I thought was very powerful, and just a good message in general. And I think it's been cool to see in this season, and like you guys are saying, that kind of political message, I guess that's which it's barely even a message. It's just people coming together, right, to stand against stand up against someone that's obviously like horrible and evil. So
there is no real politics with Wilson Fisk.
Yeah,
it's not like, I'm all for high taxes or low taxes. There is none of that. So there isn't politics involved. It's just a guy who has
he's just a bad guy
against vigilantes, and like he's using some crony cops to just crack skulls and lock people up in detention without any due process. Like, there is no politics around it. So again, we talk about politics. It's like there is no politics. There is no policy. It's not. We're not talking about fiscal policy or
the only policy that they're trying to shape is the vigilante conversation, right? Are you pro vigilante or anti-vigilante?
Which is not something that's akin to anything we're doing in the United States today.
Yeah, that doesn't anything.
There's
no
1-for-1 with that. Yeah, this isn't. We're not talking about again.
And then at the same time, they show Fisk smuggling. At the same time, they show him smuggling weapons all as the mayor and all this stuff. Like, he's clearly not someone that we should be listening to in any way. So yeah, it's been I think that messaging has been like it's just been very well told, like very, and of course we're all kind of born New Yorkers. Like, EJ, you're still obviously still a New Yorker, and it's like it feels like I was like, yeah, that would happen in New York. We would look out for each other. Like, some random bodega or some random shop would like definitely just look out for you regardless of whatever time of night, or if some crazy cops showed up or some crazy people showed up and started grabbing people, like that would not be tolerated. So yeah, I think that's been cool to see.
Absolutely, man. Well, Shamar, we'll bring you back here in about 10 minutes to continue the rest of this Daredevil conversation when we talk about season 3. But me and Kendall Kine will just wrap up a little bit of the story points as we get through the last episode of Daredevil Born Again, the first 1 through 3 episodes. So, Kendall, kind of where things stand now from like a like story perspective, and where things have lied. So the season 3 crescendo, I thought episode 3 crescendo. The episode 3 I thought was, you want to talk about really building up to a big moment. First of all, you want to talk about what they did with Dalton in that swordsman role. I mean, his role when it came to being in the courtroom, answering questions from the lawyer, the courtroom case, and I liked how someone mentioned just how Glenn. Heather Glenn in her role in all this, and someone who is been twisted by her experience, her trauma, and how that is carrying her to do some really terrible things, which is real. Like, one of the things I've seen too that I've really disliked as a criticism has been, and I'm someone who, as you guys know, I said it a ton. I said that the Heather Glenn character was one of the characters I disliked the most in almost anything I've ever seen from Marvel. That's what I've said. I mean, I don't feel like strongly one way or the other about her, but there have been people who have also been critical of the Heather Glenn character, saying, "Oh, well, why is a smart psychiatrist is she acting in this bizarre way? How could she not see that Wilson Fisk and the way he's just describing vigilantes is wrong?" I'm like, have you been alive during this period in time in American history? You don't see that what seem to be well-meaning people who maybe deal with a personal trauma or a personal experience or fear that they have, and how that maybe
I could think
kind of distorts kind of how they view reality. Like, you don't see
I could think of
it feels very clear what's happening.
I won't name any names. I don't gotta call people out, but I could think of a political commentator who was one way, and then something happened to them, and has now kind of, their whole thing has been kind of distorted in a way that is also very shocking. And it wasn't necessarily seemingly also a well-meaning person. Their whole worldviews kind of changed because of whatever happened to them, and now they're not very liked by a lot of people. But it reminds me of that situation. Like, it can happen, It's confusing in real life at times. It might be confusing in the show, but it's not unrealistic.
Yeah, and it's not, and they're kind of making it, and they're trying to create like it's bad writing. I'm like, no, this is being written on purpose. There's a purpose to this. That these incidents, and then having someone prey on those fears, create the monster that has become this new Heather Glenn character. Like, that's the point. And like, they're supposed to be critical of it.
The only thing
I want to see how they play it out. I don't know where it's going to go. I'm not like sold that this is going to be great, but people are like saying this doesn't make sense, and I'm like, no, like, the story makes sense. Let's see if they land the plane. We got time, but I don't get why people are complaining about that.
Ultimately, like, the easiest way to make it really stick for people is you've got to spend a lot of time on it, which is really the balance.
The issue.
We've only had 3 episodes so far.
Yeah.
And so, yes, they haven't spent a whole lot of time on it, and so maybe people aren't bought in yet. But like you said, we have, well over half the season now to continue to pick away at that story. And maybe by the time we get to the finale, we may be all in on the Heather Glenn story. We'll theorize on what we think's going on there. But you mentioned the Jack Duquesne character. Talk about a throwaway character in Hawkeye that, they brought back last season, and, it was in it, and it was like, okay, cameo there, Fisk was in Hawkeye, so it makes sense. Daredevil was an Echo, throwing another Hawkeye character. But man, I mean, whatever they've done to try and Netflixify this show, it has worked, right? Because you take some of these characters that were in the old MCU Disney Plus era, style shows, and you put them in now the Netflix style of um of television making, and again, his character becomes way cooler. It's
Oh
just
my
it's just
gosh,
a way
yeah.
more interesting character. He's now a guy I want to see pop up in other things. And again, I was kind of upset when he showed up last season. I was like, really, we're bringing this guy back? Like this is like the worst part of Hawkeye was this guy, and now all of a sudden now he's a great character. So again, credit to Tony Dalton and credit to the showrunners for kind of quite the turnaround.
But I think you had the right wording when you said that it's the Netflix approach to the character, because I feel like with Netflix, with the Netflix shows, when you brought in a character with real comic book background, they were not used as just an Easter egg, right?
Right.
Like I think about like the Nuke character in
Nuke was awesome.
Jessica Jones. That was an awesome addition, right? That's someone that in theory could have been just like a throwaway character in the background and just whatever. But no, this is someone that was an integral part of 2 seasons, right? And they found a way to introduce him in a way that was smart. We think about so many of these other characters that they'll throw in. Nobu, right? How he, initially it's kind of just like, okay, he's just like the Japanese Yakuza guy, but it's like, no, we're gonna do more and more and more with him, and eventually it didn't work out great, but like they actually used him in a real way in season 3.
Yeah, I mean Elektra, like, Misty Knight,
right? Yeah, like they're not like these people, like, but Marvel, yeah, but the Marvel approach, all those, yeah, Micro, like all those characters, like they got real justice done to them, and I think sometimes Marvel, because they get in their own way about like wanting to ensure again they're not getting too nerdy. Which again I talked about the criticism a ton. Is it's like, man, this is the medium. Just embrace the medium. They want to just do these little like Easter eggs and here's a name that you will be familiar with and know that you'll know.
Yeah, but then they're like they make them all goofy.
Yeah, we'll make them a goofball. We'll make a joke out of it or something. It's like, no, make him a hero. Like make him something interesting. He doesn't have to wear a costume even or anything like that, but just make him useful. And
I mean, you said it last show that we did when we talking about Green Lantern. Like nobody, we don't want to see the heroes washed. Like we don't want to see them lame.
We don't.
Like we don't want to see the lame version of swordsman. Like if you're gonna show me swordsman at all, you might as well show me the good
go
version,
for it.
The cool version.
Yeah. And there are times where Marvel didn't always do that. Like when I think about characters like Baltrock the Leaper, or I think about Crossbones. Like, ironically, the Russos they've always like taken advantage of those opportunities to present those characters that maybe they're not super important to the role, but when they show up, they're who they are. Like, and they're like, oh, okay, I'm in this. Like, Captain America's fighting Crossbones. Like, I'm all in. Like, this is like a comic book. This is like a show. Uses Claw, another great example. Using him in Avengers: Age of Ultron, a perfect example. So there's times that Marvel hasn't done that, but in recent years they've kind of done this thing again where they use these characters more just like an allusion to an Easter egg that they could make a joke out of, and giving Duquesne this, I mean, the one-shot action sequence in the Fisk prison is elite. I mean, I literally like got up and did a fist bump at the end. Like I don't usually do that when I watch a TV show, but that's how I felt watching that. I mean. And I said this on X, and shout out to my guy Pete Kennedy. We gotta have him on the show. He's a really good dude. He works here at the Fan, and I mentioned that, man, that scene, and I probably have thought this before, but that scene I was like, man, I gotta get a Daredevil video game, bro. Like we need a Daredevil video game. Find a way to make it where Radar makes sense with him being blind, but like seeing like that kind of team up in that way with a character that is, a D, maybe F-list Marvel character, but still, I mean, someone who can go with random, cops, they can beat them up. Like, it was amazing. It was completely amazing, and I was like, oh, wow. Like, I just got chills watching that scene. And that scene kind of really, it shifts the series for me in a way that I totally didn't expect. I actually was surprised at kind of what the result of it ended up being. So we know, the Matthew Lillard character who was introduced in episode 1, he, presented the idea of, hey, let me give you a cleanup team of sorts to work on the ship, as opposed to having your goons on there, because that's not a good look to have your goons on there potentially, moving off things that people don't like, and there'll be more eyeballs if your goons are doing this. And so what we learned in that episode, again, like I thought was unique to these were legit regular ass people. These were not criminals. These were like, immigrants who just probably just wanted some money, and they're just moving cargo from one place to another, and that was it. And Fisk making the decision once, Daredevil gets there, his goal is not at all to. He didn't know there were all these people in prison. Like, his thing was like, I want to see where the prisons are, and that's probably where
doing
all
some
these
recon,
all these weapons are and all these things are. I can now get more stuff on these weapons and show what's going on. But once he's all the people, he's like, we got to abandon ship. We got to get these people out here. This is insane. There's hundreds of people here. Fisk deciding to use the prison break and the chaos that came from it, and what was a failure from the AV task force to say, you know what, that's good. Like, blow up the ship with the people on it. Because now we can use this along with the video that's already out there, Daredevil being on that ship, to now present Daredevil as a terrorist, which we've already been trying to push anyway. And then that for Matt and how he approaches this, he now sees this in a different light too. He's like, oh my god, like Fisk just killed a lot of very innocent people, seemingly for no reason. Once they got all of the weapons on the cargo that they did not want to be floating around the East River, they got that off. So I think it sets up a very interesting thing, because the Matthew Lillard character that I thought was kind of just going to be on Fisk's side, I think this maybe kind of sets up like a 3-wage war. I think there's going to be beef with maybe the CIA and beef with obviously Daredevil and Fisk. And now I think this actually becomes a very even more dynamic and more interesting kind of next 6 episodes moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, that obviously that moment at the end of season 3, episode 3 was crazy. Like you said, it was quite the crescendo of an episode. It was just consistently building. The action was consistently moving forward, and just when you finally think it's over and it's slowed down, you get that crazy ending. There's another thing where people will talk a lot about the idea of, in real life, they'll talk about like the false flags and something will happen, but this was actually, whatever country or whatever, pretending to be the terrorists. And that, is another thing that, again, might imitate real life. They weren't planning on it feeling like stuff that's happening, now, but that's, that's a real thing. And so, yeah, I mean, that storyline is interesting. I still have a lot of questions on who Matthew Lillard is playing, right?
I know.
We've heard that he's got connections to Val.
Yep.
You mentioned the CIA, obviously Val being connected to the CIA. That makes sense. But is there something there? Like, is there something deeper, or is it just?
I mean, here we go.
They're being very mysterious about
it. Here we go again. How many times have we done this with a Disney Plus show where a character shows up and are they more than what they appear to be? Because people have made the case: is this William Stryker? Is this Henry Gyrick? Like, these are the characters I've seen mentioned, and I'm like,
I can't imagine.
I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it anymore. Like, I'm not doing that. I'm just taking these characters now for who they are. I'm not at this point. I can't at this point in good faith continue to keep playing that game only to just be wildly disappointed. At a certain point, you show me who you are in terms of creators. Now, again, Daredevil Born Again and this group seems to be operating in a different lens than the rest of the MCU in terms of how they approach certain things. So, he could end up being something super.
Matthew Lillard.
That'd be awesome. But as far as who this Mr. Charles guy is, I would love to get Shamari's thoughts on that, and maybe we could ask him before we get into the stuff we want to talk about later. But I don't know. I'm just along for the ride when it comes to Mr. Charles. I was a little surprised we didn't see him in either of these 2 episodes, but I think he's going to be a bigger role now, like starting episode 4. I assume now he's going to kind of become a regular role, because again, now Fisk has kind of crossed him in a major way by, again, killing all of these people that he had hired.
What did you make of the BB and Daniel Blake storyline with the dolls or whatever?
Yeah, I really like the BB and Daniel dynamic.
I do as well.
I like Daniel's character. I really like this character, and because it speaks to kind of, I think, what is probably the reality for whatever you think of any government you like or dislike, the people and the staffers that are there to simply do their jobs and live their life and want to prosper in the city that they grew up in, like, despite him obviously being there to help aid in some pretty gnarly, terrible things, he some ways still seems like a charming young man that you kind of want to root for,
positive.
and you want to root for in a weird way, and you kind of see kind of that he is kind of naive to some of what's going on, and not to give him excuses. Like, I don't mean to do that, but he does feel kind of naive to everything that's kind of going on, and he just
Like
sees that,
Sheila
look,
clearly,
I'm living in this cool penthouse, and like I'm just having fun with my friends, and I'm just
I'm the
normal
deputy
guy.
mayor.
Yeah, and I'm a
of
deputy
communications
mayor.
at
Communications.
27 or whatever he is.
I'm living my dream. Which, again, how many times do you hear people in those kind of roles when they then get sometimes get called to Congress about different malfeasance? Whether that's what they kind of say, right? You feel like this feels very real. Like, it feels like this feels very authentic to what could actually happen. And again, Fisk is a master manipulator. Is there an aspect of, like, again, should there be more showing of this working on him rather than the telling of it? Maybe, but again, we know who Fisk is. And I loved what you said, or I what Shamari said. I thought he made a great point that it just feels like the danger involved with everybody is so much more greater. Because, I mean, the scene with him and Fisk is, again, you feel real fear. Like, you're like, this is, like, I know he's a grown man, but you're like, this is just a boy. Like, he just made a mistake. Like, don't do it. Don't hurt him.
Yeah.
Like, even though he's a bad guy in theory, like, he's working with Fisk or whatever. Be like, he's just a young man just trying to just live his life and try to make something of himself. Like, but you sense, like, again, this is Kingpin as mayor. This is not even Wilson Fisk as mayor anymore. So I like that dynamic, and I liked BB Ulrich's role. I think that they could have probably done a reveal of who that person was behind the Fisk mask stuff a little better, and I think they also probably could have done a better job of, like, it's very quick. It's almost immediate. Like,
it's anti-drive. It was anticlimactic.
Yeah, I thought the editing on that was probably not the best. That probably should have been a scene that happened later in the episode. Wow. I was like, oh, okay, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's supposed to signal, like, that's not a big deal. Like, it's not a, like, she was obviously, like, the red herring. Like, she was like who they wanted you to think it was the whole time.
It was either gonna be her or Sheila. Those are the only two people who would have made any sense.
Right. Sheila would have been more shocking in terms of, like, wow, that's crazy. Like, BB is like, again, they were literally right before that they had the scene where Daniel Blake's like, are you the one doing it?
Right.
And so you're like, all right, where she said she's not doing it, or she's not leaking the information. Yeah. So I mean, maybe it's not her. And then they had to reveal, it is her.
Yeah, and then you had the episode. Earlier episode, I forgot if it was episode 1 or 2, where, she has I guess it was episode 1, where we see that she's working with Karen. So it's like,
yeah,
I think that could have been handled better, and I think that they also could have. I think I need to see more about, like, how they did a pretty good job of making this show how it's getting under Fisk's skin because he's simply a thin-skinned man. But I kind of would like to see how this is actually resonating with people. Like maybe seeing people running around the streets, like, in that Fisk mask, right? Or, like, maybe posting pictures, like, whatever. I think there is ways to, because otherwise it just feels like it's just going out into the ether and whatever, like, they keep saying, well, people are reading it or we're seeing, but we're not really seeing what the impact is. We see Matt's impact of, like, his war in terms of the actual war and actually simply just organizing people and protecting people, but the actual fighting the disinformation from Fisk war that they're trying to show through those vignettes, while they're shot very well and they're, like, I think they're executed very well. I enjoy them. I think I would like to see how that is resonating with people. Like, they show people watching it on their phone, or people saying, "Yo, did you see the last Fisk drop?" And, like, them we don't see any of those scenes. So the dynamic between BB and Daniel is one of my favorites in the show, actually. The reveal of that and the impact of those videos, I think they haven't quite hit the mark on just yet.
Yeah, and we talked about Daniel's character, and what makes him really great is it's not just him individually, but his dynamic connected with the entire cabinet that we see, the entire brain trust in it's him and Fisk that have this really interesting dynamic. It's him and Buck who we saw in episode 3.
They created the Buck dynamic that I really like too.
Yeah, that was very interesting. And how you mentioned how it's hard to root for Daniel Blake because he's obviously a part of such an evil regime, and he's seemingly cool with it. But at the same time, when you see that scene with him and Buck, you realize they're not doing the same thing. Like whatever, they're not working for the same agenda necessarily. Buck is just he's the fixer. He's the muscle. He doesn't really. He's the political muscle as well. And then you have Sheila, who feels like the closest thing to the moral center of that brain trust. And we have plenty of people that we've seen in politics that you feel like, man, why is this person working for this person,
exactly.
Right? But you almost want them there because you feel like they're the only guardrail we've got.
It'd be a lot worse if they weren't there.
Right? Right. Yeah, we'd be in a lot worse shape. And so it feels like she plays that role, which is very interesting. But yeah, it's a very it's a great dynamic because again, she kind of feels like the audience when it comes to the Daniel Blake character, where it's like she kind of cringes at like, man, like this kid doesn't even know what he's got himself into. Like she understands it, which is why she plays along. But she's like, this kid doesn't know what he's doing. And so, yeah, it's a very interesting dynamic that entire brain trust has, and how they work with it is great. I want to see more of Sheila and Buck interact as well.
Same. I like Buck. Buck's a really good character.
Oh, he's awesome. He was awesome last season. And he's been great.
Yeah, he was. When Buck comes across Dex, that is going to be that's like, in wrestling when you got like those two monsters that WWE would kind of keep separate for a long time and you're waiting for them to fight. Like when those two lock horns, that is going to be must-see TV. Yeah, exactly. This is your keeping Obafemi away from some of your bigger talent and waiting till Brock Lesnar shows up to bring him in.
We saw
those two interact.
One of the things we saw in the trailers that people have highlighted is it looks like we might get a flashback of the Wesley character from the Netflix show.
Oh, cool.
And I'm interested if they decipher or do any sort of dichotomy between Buck and Wesley and from the Netflix show. It's a shame that he's dead. If there's any way they could bring him back, that would be awesome. But I don't think it's possible.
One thing about the Netflix show was that they killed off a lot of great characters, but in some ways, outside of obviously Cottonmouth may be the only one you're like, man, that was one that maybe you shouldn't have done. A lot of them are like their presence was so strong and the killings were so shocking, and then the ramifications of the killings were so impactful on the actual seasons that you're just fine with it. You're just like, yeah, we lost Ben Ulrich. That sucked, but man, that death was awesome. That was crazy.
Yeah,
we lost, Wesley. Yeah, that sucked, but man, he was an awesome character. When Karen killed him, I was like, oh my god, this is a crazy shift for this character in that way. It was just Marvel, they'll kill off a character in a way you're like, what are you what? It's not a character.
Yeah,
why? You're
Nobody asked.
Up, killing off so many of their villains, and okay, now we hit those people again. It's just I thought Netflix have done a better job with that. Last thing before I bring Shamari back in here, and I think we wrapped up a lot of what happened with season 3, episode 3 rather. The one thing I did want to mention also was Angela Del Toro coming closer and closer to becoming White Tiger, and she helps in that prison escape, helping save her aunt, who one of those people who got taken away by the AVTF. What did you make of kind of where her character goes and her really stepping into this role eventually as a hero?
I thought it was awesome. I think, honestly, I was talking to our mom about it. She watches the show. She loves it. And, we both joked, I was like, I'd rather see her with the Young Avengers and some of the people that they're putting on that team. And this is honestly what happens when you organically work with these characters instead of just trying to shoehorn things in and make movies based off things that we don't even know if we like yet. they've tried to push this thing like we're gonna get Cassie Lang in the Young Avengers. I'm like, I don't know if there's anybody that actually likes the Cassie Lang character, but they're trying to shoehorn in that character and make us like that character. Maybe they could, but Ant-Man Quantumania didn't do anything to help us.
Yeah.
I actually thought it was fascinating, not to get on a random. We remember we used to talk about the Cassie Lang recasting and how awful that was, and
right.
how like the actress that played Cassie Lang in what was it, Avengers, whatever, Endgame, I guess it was. Yeah. And then they recasted her in in Quantumania to be Catherine Newton because they felt the actress wasn't good enough. Well, the Scooby-Doo show is coming out, Netflix Scooby-Doo, and for Velma, they casted the original Cassie Lang actress that was in the original Ant-Man, who's now like 16, 17. And I'm like, she's probably old enough to play like actual Catherine Newton's damn near 20, 30. Yeah, she's gonna be pushing 30 by the time we hit, by the time we get a Young Avengers thing. And it's like, if Marvel wasn't so gung-ho about recasting and stuff, they could have... Right. Again, I don't think they realized it was going to take them 12 years to make Young Avengers or Champions, whatever they're making. But, yeah, that's where we're at now. But yeah, that storyline was awesome. And I definitely want to see them push it forward.
Yeah, I agreed, man. I really liked... You mentioned that organic build. Like, this is a character now you feel like you know. Like, we've seen who this person is, why she's motivated the way she's motivated. We got a feel of who she was before her uncle was killed, while her uncle was on trial, then after he was killed, her feelings around that. We see kind of, how she already feels about authority and cops and all those different things. So how she responds to then her aunt then being taken away and saying, I'm going full tilt. I want to be a part of this. Give me my uncle's stuff. And, like, it just made a lot of sense. It was a really great moment, and I hope this isn't the last of her in this season. I assume that she'll have other moments as well. But when you mentioned the Young Avengers thing, man, I thought that was a good point. I totally agreed with that. So again, there will be no more 2-episode drops going forward. There's going to be just 1 episode per week moving forward. So I think tomorrow will be all good. I mean, in some ways, I feel like I kind of envy him because okay, now he can go watch episode 3 like he hasn't seen it. And that he has been spoiled is insane. That he's just like walking around like, oh, I watched only 1 episode this week. I thought I'm all good. So I'm like, oh man, I wish I got the feel of watching episode 3 again. I'm actually curious when we bring him back next week or 2 weeks from now, because obviously next week will be away. Like, how did he feel watching episode 3? And like as a solo thing, like that's probably be a different experience. So, but no, I'm excited to see what happens for the rest of the season as we continue on with the episode here of New Generation Hero Talk. So this has been a huge week when it comes to Daredevil Born Again, for not just even season 2, but now season 3, because the news that dropped this week, and I don't know how I'm gonna end up titling this episode, so maybe it's in the title, maybe it's not, I don't know. But in terms of the conversation, we've tried to be as respectful as possible in terms of keeping spoilers, especially because season 2 is still happening, and so like there's still episodes going on. But what happened this week was quite stunning. So again, if you're not interested in any spoilers, I would once again continue to move past this current part of the conversation, maybe come back in another 20 minutes or so. But we got word this week through set photos that came out as they begin shooting season 3 of Daredevil Born Again that Mike Colter and Finn Jones are indeed poised to return as Luke Cage and Iron Fist. So this is obviously monster news. This was not... Well, first of all, let's give a round of applause. Let's get the round of applause in there. There you go. This is what we've been waiting for, right? We've been waiting for to see the full reuniting of the Defenders, at least for a lot of people, and now it is here. It is going to happen.
Hey, EJ, man, you clocked it at Comic-Con. You had your theory.
I said it was happening at Comic-Con. I said I was convinced with the dialogue in terms of how they were talking, and again, I thought it was weird how much Charlie Cox, that is, was talking about like the times he remembers shooting with the Defenders and shooting with Finn and Mike, and I'm like, why would you be mentioning people who don't work for Marvel? It just seemed like there's a way you can talk about Kristen Ritter returning. But it doesn't have to include them if you know they're not coming back. Like, it just seems. Otherwise, it seemed very odd to just talk about that in the way that he did. So I saw that. I said, this is happening. I said this. They're gonna be back. I think this is them kind of teeing it up for you about what to expect, potentially moving forward. Like, remember how cool that was when that happened? That was really cool, right?
It was so awesome when we were shooting the Defenders. It's like, wait,
yeah,
the Defenders?
So awesome.
Like,
and then, all right, anyway, let's move on. I was like, wait, what? Well, that was random. Like, yeah, no, I saw what they were doing with that. So, first of all, let's let the folks, for people who are watching on YouTube, we got the picture. So, this was the first one I saw. This was the first one I saw, and it was like, whoa. So you got Kristen Ritter.
Is that Mace Windu?
If only, Kendall.
Mace Windu. So that's, of course, Kristen Ritter. She don't need no cloak because we know that she's already been back as Jessica Jones. And there you got Finn Jones in his Danny Rand kind of getup in a black cloak. And then you got a black man that we can only assume at this point was Mike Colter in a black cloak as well to hide their identities, though it doesn't feel like they're hiding their identities all that well in this picture. We then also got this shot here of more clear shot of Mike Colter there as Luke Cage, and there was another shot here as well, and that's a much closer shot. And these are all shots from the set of Daredevil Born Again. This is not AI. This is not again some AI slop you see on social media that will show every now and then. This is the real deal. These are real photos that were taken. So they are back now. We now have all the defenders. We have Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock. We have Kristen Ritter as Jessica Jones. We have Mike Colter as Luke Cage, and now we have maybe the one that was the most maybe in question, Finn Jones as Iron Fist. So I will say this. I'm super thrilled. This is what I wanted. This is what I felt like had to happen. I thought there was under no circumstance that if you were going to start bringing some of the defenders back, that the others shouldn't also come back and not come back as the original actors. Good, bad, or indifferent. You just had to embrace what was done before to continue on the story. So I think that this is some of the best news we've heard from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, probably since we learned that Daredevil Born Again was coming back. I hate that this is how we learned that this was going to happen. I don't know why this had to be how we learned that this was going to happen. In theory, maybe they felt like there was no opportunity to hide this. Like, the one thing about Daredevil that I really enjoyed, that it is not shot in the Atlanta sweatshop. It is shot really legitimately in New York City, legitimately in Hell's Kitchen. So, people know where they're shooting these scenes. So, people are going to be out there with their phones, and people are going to be out there with their cameras. So, I guess they felt like, just like last year, when we saw all those shots of Daredevil in his black suit, where we're like, oh, snap, Daredevil's in a black suit. And we saw pictures of Karen Page, Deborah Ann Worrell, walking around in a red wig. And we're like, oh, well, I guess she's going to survive this season. She's back. Like, I guess they just feel like there's no way to really hide those things, so you might as well allow people to see certain things and give them what they want, and then just keep it moving. I don't know why you couldn't have some kind of event, maybe at the Daredevil premiere, or maybe at a different kind of event. WonderCon was just recently. Some kind of thing where you do some kind of panel and you have those two guys show up and they announce that they're in Daredevil season 3, and that is how you get the reveal. That is the news. I just see some pictures pop up of them in their costumes, in their wardrobe in New York City. That's the most anticlimactic way you could ever announce some of the most important news you could have right now that's not related to the X-Men when it comes to the MCU. So I thought that was a massive misstep. It was also like on a Friday, right? So like literally Friday dump. Like what are we doing? Like this? How is it not okay? If you're gonna do it, shoot those scenes on Monday. Like let this be the first thing that happens to start to kick off a big week, not the end of the week on a holiday. It's just silly to me. So it sucks that that's kind of how it went down. I don't know. I haven't seen any like reporting on like, all right, so they're here. Like, can we get an official statement now that we know that they're in the city? They're just they're just moving along as if business as usual. It seems really odd, but nonetheless, I am still excited about the fact that Finn and Mike are back in the fold with Marvel playing Danny Rand and Luke Cage. Sham, what did you think of both the reveal when it happened and how Marvel decided to approach it?
I mean, I was very excited. You know, obviously, I feel like everybody else, like you were saying, EJ. You know, this is what I wanted to see. This is what I feel like we needed to see. You were on the money in Comic Con. You did, you know, do the Nostradamus. You predicted that this would come to pass. I mean, you know, in terms of how it happened, I mean, it's regrettable. I feel like I've almost become kind of numb a little bit to a lot of these kinds of like, you know, leak drops of all the leaked set photo of this one, that one. I've come to almost expect that that's how we learn
Mm,
a lot of what happens.
right.
So honestly, it was not surprising, like in the slightest, to just because that's how we get so much stuff now. Is it's just leaked. You know, that's usually how even how a lot of the rumor mill starts is, oh, this person was seen on this set or, you
Right.
know, in
Yeah.
this location or what have you.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, unfortunately in that I mean, I agree. I would have much rather had it be announced at a con or announced at, you know, in some kind of formal way. But unfortunately, I was not surprised that this is, you know, this is kind of what happened. But it's very exciting nonetheless. I cannot wait to see this actually come to fruition.
Yeah, because I mean, I think about even with Kristen Ritter, like there was a lot of smoke that Kristen Ritter was going to be back. She was posting kind of cryptic things. Um, you know, it just but it wasn't maybe it wasn't explicit as her being on a set, but it did seem like she was somehow back in the fold. But nonetheless, they still had the moment of not revealing where she's just shooting scenes with Matt Murdock last year, and she was able to come out at New York Comic Con and have that happen, and people get excited, and people are like, all right, it's here, like it's official, and you know we got to hear some reporting from trades leading up to this. Like this was nothing. We didn't know no trades. We didn't get no Comic Con. It was just oh, by the way, here's Luke Cage in a suit, in a black and yellow suit, just in New York City on the set of Daredevil season 3. Here we go. It was bizarre. It was a bizarre way to go about this. Kevin, I know you said you got a lot to say on this, so I'm very curious how you feel about the reveal and everything that went down.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, look, 3 for 3. I'm in agreement that this is great news. I I'm not shocked given how they ended season 1, where they're like, we gotta put together a team of vigilantes, and they're doing this vigilante thing, and you ask yourself, who is on this team? It's not going to be
Yeah.
Spider-Man. Like, it's got to be people we recognize. Like, it's not just going to be swordsmen. Like, it's got to be other people
Mhm.
that, you know, we recognize. And it's not just Punisher. Like, so the Defenders were the logical next step. I think the surprise, like EJ mentioned, is Danny Rand being a part of it was the one thing that seemed very much up in the air. People are like, maybe we'll get Colleen Wing. Maybe we'll get the guy that's, you know, in Marvel Rivals, Iron Fist. Like, maybe we're not going to get Danny Rand, but it makes sense. Like you said, you got to keep the continuity. Danny Rand's the Iron Fist that we all know and love. And, you know, I mean, it's been a long time, right? So we'll give Finn Jones grace. We'll give him time. We'll give him, hopefully he worked on his game. You know, as you say in basketball and football, hopefully he's a little better. But it's been a long time. We'll see how the performance shakes out nowadays. Um, but no, I'm excited for that. In terms of the reveal, look, it's tough, man. Um, to me, honestly, it makes me wonder if they're just doing this because they're in this season. Because I think that's the, well, not.
Oh
I
yeah.
think that's the big question that is still up in the air, regardless of
Yeah.
this announcement or this reveal. Is we don't know if this is. We know it's for season. We know they're in season 3. We don't know if they're in season 2.
Right.
And I think we've all kind of speculated that they will be in season 2, and they probably don't want to reveal that. And so maybe they want to make it look like, yeah, this is a season 3 thing, and like you guys can prepare for your first look at the Defenders to be the season 3 trailer, and then they show up in the finale or something like that. Like I think that's a thing that they may be trying to build to, and so it's tough for them. They can't really officially, because once you start bringing them out at cons or doing posts on social media, then it kind of feels like you're building towards them. You're spoiling their return in the show. When they show up in the show, it's like, well, yeah, I mean, they showed them on Instagram, like, and the show's actively playing right now. So I think that's the only way this makes any sense why they're being so quiet about it.
And by the way, real quickly, I think that's what's going to happen. I have felt that they were going to be in the season also. Maybe not, and like as prevalent as Kristen Ritter is going to be. Maybe again only in a finale, or maybe a little bit at the very end. But I thought that they were going to show up. So
and look,
I didn't think about that, but that's actually good. That would make sense as to why maybe they would do it this way.
Yeah, and look, I said it at Comic-Con when we came out of Comic-Con. I thought it was weird that they didn't. Mike Colter was there, and they didn't bring him out. I was like, what are we doing? Like Mike Colter we know he's in the season, man. Like, what are we doing? He's in the building, but they wanted to have a surprise, right? They needed to market the show somehow. So all right, let's let people know Jessica Jones is in it, popular, get the Defenders people, Netflix people excited. But we still do need to have some surprises on hand, and so they kept the Luke Cage thing. We'll see about Iron Fist as well, but at the same time, when you get burned like this, like maybe they should just brought them all out, right? But if you bring them all out, at Comic-Con, you don't have this announcement that has no juice. It's not as important, or this reveal isn't as important. So, I mean, we'll talk about Jean Grey and Sadie Sink in a minute, but I think that's another conversation that Marvel's just going to have to really update their strategy when it comes to leaks and when it comes to reveals, right? I mean, we saw them being on the, they're, on the offense and kind of being proactive when it came to Robert Downey Jr. playing Dr. Doom. Jeff Snyder had it, but he was really early and he was kind of speculating, and he caught it a week before Comic-Con, but they were proactive, ready to reveal that thing. Knowing that we're not gonna be able to keep this for the movie. Like, yeah, it'd be awesome to reveal Tony Stark is Doctor Doom in a movie. That'd be like Darth Vader 2.0, but it's impossible, right? Not if you want him to, not if you want, and also they may want to sell the movie, right? It's part of selling the movie, but
that's part of it too.
But even if they wanted to save the reveal, like nowadays it's impossible. They know it leaks, so you got to reveal something like that. Jean Grey, I mean, look. The Marvel went all out assault saying, we can do this. We can keep this under wraps. And some of it just came to like logic, right? Being like, no way they're doing all this for a character that's not Jean Grey. But still, now we've got reports, Jeff Snyder coming out officially saying that, yes, it's Jean Grey. And, at the end of the day, if you're Marvel, like, was it worth it? Was the all out assault that they went on to try and, the disinformation warfare, that they played to try and make us think she's not Jean Grey? Was it really worth it? Because we all know she's Jean Grey anyway. So the surprise in the movie, while it will still be cool, is going to be like, okay, what else do you have? And that's, that's unfortunate. We had the Spider-Mans in No Way Home, where it's like, are they in the movie? We all kind of wondering and speculating. And then John Campea posts a picture where it's like, wait, is that the Spider-Man? Is this real? And he's like, oh, it's fake. No, don't worry, guys. And they show up, and it was obviously real. But, so yeah, I just think nowadays Marvel's got to be proactive about maybe some of the stuff just shouldn't be hidden. Like, I know we can't, I'd rather go into movies not knowing everything that's about to happen. They did a good job with Beast in Miss Marvel, or the Marvels rather. Like, that was not something that was all over the internet, months in advance, years in advance. But yeah, they have to be cognizant that they've got leaks, and I don't know how this stuff works. Maybe they are the leak in a lot of these situations, but
sometimes they are.
I know that's the theory a lot of people have. But if they're not, then they just got to understand that this is the world we live in now, and trying to keep this thing hidden is only gonna hurt the property.
Yeah. No question about it, man. And I kind of wonder, if this is going to be the new normal. Like, will we be seeing potentially, people on set? Like, there was, I think, a little bit of this with Daredevil, Deadpool and Wolverine too. Like, where we would see people on set and be like, oh, well, that person, I guess, is going to be the movie. Like, the Sabretooth character from the original X-Men movie. Like, we knew he was in the movie because there was a set photo that was taken from, 70
Right.
yards away that showed him he
Right.
was going to be in it.
And some of the stuff we realized were like not really like we kept seeing like Azazel on the set. We're like, bro,
Right, yeah.
Azazel
Yeah,
from
but
First Class and Deadpool and Wolverine is like
yeah.
he's not really in the movie.
Yeah,
Like he's in the
but
background.
it's not really that important that he's in it, right? So yeah,
Right.
so I think this may be part of it where, like, listen, like, if there are aspects of this that aren't really the main thing, like they didn't give us a picture of Chris Evans, being in the movie.
No.
That was surprising. Like you mentioned, Beast, right? Like, so there's some things where it makes, okay, this we can maybe give them, and perhaps maybe kind of give them a little this to maybe kind of misdirect to give you something bigger. Now I don't know what could be potentially bigger than Mike Colter and Finn Jones. But the bigger thing, like you said, could very well be that they're actually going to show up in like episode 6 or episode 7, right? And they're part of the end of this season. That would be the bigger thing.
The question I have for you guys is: do you think? Because I have a theory that I think that they're building the Defenders to be bigger than they were, a bigger team than they were in the Netflix verse. I don't know if it's just going to be the 4 of them because I think ultimately they'll probably do some sort of movie special thing or a separate series or something like that. But I think that they're going to try and expand this brand out a little bit to include, I don't know who. Obviously, Punisher is obviously somebody that is in the family as well. But I think there may be other heroes that they continue to try and build up that could wind up being a part of this as well. Because I don't know if it makes sense to just do the 4 of them again.
My theory is they're gonna try to do some, and I don't know if you guys saw Vincent D'Onofrio's comments where he kind of like he's talked about this rights issue thing for a while now, but he kind of had what I thought were maybe his strongest comments, really kind of criticizing Sony, where he was like, we gotta figure this out, like they gotta get their act together and make this happen so you can have Spider-Man and Kingpin cross over. I think they want to do some kind of potential Shadowland kind of movie that includes all these characters, including Spider-Man. Like I think that is where they want to go, and maybe this is like this negotiation that's happening behind the scenes that they're just gonna keep fighting to try to see if they can figure it out. But in my gut, that is where this is going. Whether Kingpin's in that or not, maybe he's not in it, but you can still do a story that's those street level characters that include Spider-Man. But I think that is what is at play. Like Spider-Man's been a part of the Avengers, which has been great. But I think that this next era of movies, he'll probably be another Avenger movie too. But I think there's a chance that this next movie they may create a Marvel movie, an event movie that's a New York street level movie that includes all these different characters crossing over, and I think Tom Holland will actually be a part of that. That's my theory.
It's a smart way to put
That's
over.
actually part of the reason. It's part of the reason why I think Punisher is actually also in this next movie. I think that like putting Daredevil in No Way Home and then Punisher in this one, I think you're setting yourself up for this thing.
These characters to kind of all know each other.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's. I mean, obviously they're starting with the main team. They may add people. I think it's possible. The only person I foresee, though, I mean, to me, it seems clear they're setting something up with that girl to maybe be another White Tiger.
Right.
So I guess she's on the board in some way. We don't know how or whatnot. Punisher, as you guys said.
I mentioned while you were gone, I mentioned she could be a part of the Young Avengers. I'd much rather see her than a lot of those other characters they've tried to shoehorn in.
Yeah, it could be another kind of like the Ultimate Ultimate Spider-Man or whatever that
show
was.
Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon.
Yeah, basically. So yeah, but I honestly don't know. It's possible. Yeah, they may be trying to increase the team, like increase the size of the team, but I don't know. I mean, I'm fine with the core team. I think they should start with the core team. Like if they were to make a Defender show, I don't think they should like add other people to it. Outside of people we know like Punisher or whoever if they want. They can test the waters. I think maybe if they want to add maybe introduce some new heroes in that show or prospective show, and see how people feel about that. I wouldn't be opposed to something like that. And then the only other person I think that we've seen interact in this kind of Daredevil world, I guess, is Echo. So unless
Yeah.
if she were to come back in some
I mean,
way,
Echo. And
in
the other
theory,
that
person
would
we
probably
haven't
be.
seen at all is
In theory, Kate Bishop is a New York based character too, so she could also
That's
be a part of it.
true as well. And
yeah,
she's
she's
not like
definitely
super powered
age.
also, so that might.
Yeah, she's definitely aging out of the the champions role as well.
Right.
I think the situation also, or the one character that we haven't seen from the Netflix verse that I think a lot of people want to see also is Karen, Claire Temple rather, and that's she's not necessarily a hero, but she's somebody that could certainly return in this season or season 3.
Yeah.
You know, if it hasn't been spoiled yet, they can still continue to bring back and maybe throw her in a Defender show as well.
I'm sure Rosario Dawson would, now that she already has getting money from Disney from one side, I'm sure she'd be perfectly happy with getting more money from Disney from the Marvel side, as she's already Ashoka. So I can see that as well. So Finn and Mike are back. Creates a lot of different interesting conversations about what is the future. Is there going to be a Iron Fist show again, a Luke Cage show again? That's the aspect of it I find interesting. Is like, is it possible like those shows return? Or are these characters only
Heroes for Hire makes more sense.
Yeah,
Heroes for Hire that leans a lot more Luke Cage than it leans Iron Fist makes makes more sense. I think even if it's honestly you make it, that's a show that doesn't have to be. Look, I'm all for making all these shows awesome and serious and super deep, but like that's a show if you wanted to make it a Heroes for Hire that was kind of like She-Hulk, where it's kind of also kind of procedural and a little comedic. Like I'm fine with that. Mm-hmm. Like I wouldn't be like Wonder Man. Like I wouldn't go crazy and say, oh no, like this is dumb. They're wasting real estate on Luke Cage and Iron Fist.
If you guys had to pick one, they told you only one more character that was from the Netflix first can return in the MCU, who would you choose? That hasn't been brought back.
That we know it that we know is not like confirmed.
Yeah, that's not. There's no word that they're back.
Okay.
I mean, the main guy before would have been Bullseye, but now Bullseye's been back since Daredevil since episode 1. It's tough. Like I mentioned, Claire. We ain't getting Micro back. Not after Thing. Not after Ben Grimm. We're not getting him back. I don't know. I mean, Colleen Wing, Misty Knight. Like again, you're telling me you're only getting one of those characters. It's tough.
One.
Right now, off the top of my head, off the dome, I would say maybe Colleen Wing, but I don't know. Am I missing anybody?
I mean, I'm going to.
I really like the new characters. Is Nuke still? Is he still alive? I don't remember.
I don't remember what happened to him. I'm watching season 1 as we're doing now. I'm in the second half of the season. I get the feeling he died. I don't think he survived that season 2. I don't know how.
Oh, you know what? It's Purple Man. Purple Man. We got to get Purple Man back.
Oh, Kilgrave?
Yeah, it's Kilgrave.
Well, that's someone that has to be revived. Now, I don't. Again, I didn't watch season 3.
I was going to say if we're including. If we're doing that, I was going to say maybe Cottonmouth, but I know I guess is Blade still on the table or whatever. Like,
that's right. That's right there with Micro.
Just like with Thing, I ain't never gonna happen. In Cottonmouth instead of after what's going on with Blade. Yeah, I don't think Mahershala. Yeah, no, I don't think it's gonna happen. Yeah, I mean mine's Electra. I mean it's simple. I mean,
Electra. Okay.
You see all this stuff and you're like, man, like to bring Electra back into the fold and what that could mean for not just the Daredevil verse, but just like the overall Marvel cinematic verse, like that, her crossover potential with someone like Shang-Chi, like that, I think could be an awesome villain or team up that you see in a future Shang-Chi movie is her with Shang-Chi. So she would be the person for me. I thought that she was one of the best adaptations we saw on Netflix, so I would go. Colleen was a good call too. Colleen and Misty Knight those are the three that is all the women for me, but those are the three and I would lean Jessica Jones. Let me see, Erica, Electra, but Colleen was the other one that maybe kind of paused for sure. Exciting stuff though, having Finn Jones and Mike Colter back. Let's shift gears here. I want to talk about the latest happening with, again, the it person right now when it comes to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that's someone that we have not even watched a single second of, really. They may have been in that Spider-Man. They may have been in that
man, you
Spider-Man
guys gotta get on
trailer.
Stranger Things.
Yeah, well, I mean in the MCU. I'm not even talking about. I'm not talking about in
Okay.
general. But no, I'm saying we haven't watched a second in the MCU, but they're the only person anyone really wants to talk about is Sadie Sink, and we got a lot of different added things in the last few weeks about kind of where things stand with her. So we know she's in Spider-Man, Brand New Day. We know she's in Avengers Doomsday too, right? Am I not mistaken? Or is she only in Secret Wars? I don't remember.
Secret Wars she's gonna be in.
Okay,
We
Secret
don't think
Wars,
she's in
right?
Doomsday.
Right, so she's in Secret Wars, and there's been additional reporting that she is once again going to be Jean Grey. It feels like Groundhog Day where we get the reporting like, report Sadie Sink is playing Jean Grey. That's right. I'm like, I feel like I've seen this report 15 times already. Like, when is this official or whatever? But there was even more reporting that she is indeed playing Jean Grey.
Yeah, that was just funny. Just to say, funny. I told Shamari this last week. I was like, when Jeff Snyder came out and said it's confirmed now, I'm reporting she's Jean Grey. I'm like, I love Jeff Snyder, but I mean, this isn't like Kevin Feige saying it. Like this. We've gotten other people that have speculated or reported that she's Jean Grey. I wouldn't necessarily say he is the confirmation that it's a done deal.
Yeah, I the only thing I can think of is that like he got the go ahead from whoever his sources are to say
Right.
officially this was happening. But again, we had already people saying this already, so it's like I don't know what
Right.
this means anymore. This is a report that has happened, so it does feel like at this point in time, if you got any money on Mary Jane Watson
Polly Market.
or you got any money on like Mary Jane Watson or Gwen Stacy or that other random like spider character that we kind of mentioned briefly,
Shathra.
Yeah, Shatra. Like you got money on them. I don't feel like you're in good shape right now. It feels like this Jean Grey thing is all but a done deal, I assume. But some other aspects of this that were reported as well by my time to China Hello, and I found this part of it interesting was that Sadie Sink has signed a 5-year deal that includes options for television, which I find very, very fascinating. And the approach moving forward is that she's going to be seen as the quote-unquote main character of this next saga that is believed to be the mutant saga for Marvel coming up. So I would want to say this on the TV aspect, or the deal and the TV aspect of it. I'm really, really fascinated by the TV aspect of it because Papa Bear is gone and Bob Iger. And we know when Iger was in, he had this mandate that we got to cut when it comes to Disney Plus projects. And it's not like Marvel's been greenlighting a ton of stuff since he's been gone for the last few months he's been gone. And this year we knew he was leaving. But we've talked for years on this show about, now we thought we'd have a lot more done with the mutants by now. But we talked about, man, like, what if, because of how aggressive they were with their initial Marvel Disney Plus rollout, what if they decide to really use Disney Plus as an avenue to tell more stories about mutants, right? Like, what? And there were already rumors too, like, they may be considering like a Wolverine anthology series and maybe a series on Storm and all these different things. I'm thinking that was an absolutely brilliant idea. I think most of us agreed with it. I think we were trying to figure out who were the characters that we should single out. That would be great. And when you heard about how they were cutting a lot of Disney stuff, Disney Marvel stuff, you're like, okay, well maybe that's not in the cards anymore. If someone who's going to be the quote unquote main character of Marvel moving forward is also going to be potentially showing up in television, I think that if you're someone like the people on this show who have gone crazy over and over again about when are we going to see mutants in a major way, I think this is your confirmation that you're going to see mutants in a serious way that's going to go beyond just movies, beyond just X-Men projects. I think that we're entering a truly different phase. If Jean Grey has to show up potentially in TV shows, the sky's the limit, really, in terms of what we may get. And this part of this, of all the news we got with Sadie Sink in the last 2 weeks, that part of it was probably the I found most exciting, Kendall.
EJ, is that option to show up on TV? Is that like the Kirk Cousins deal that he just signed with the Raiders, where it's like a 5-year, $200 million deal?
Yeah. It's only worth like, 1 year and $20 million.
Yeah, he's gonna get cut after a year, so that Mendoza can become the starter. No, I mean the situation with Sadie Sink. I mean, I'm totally in agreement that having the TV option is awesome. Because that's something we've talked about, wanting to see more of. I know they're trying to kind of go away from the connecting the TV and in the movies. They feel like they, WandaVision and Doctor Strange kind of got bogged down a little bit by the TV connection, and even Ant-Man, Quantumania, and Loki. You got to do a lot of homework. I guess they don't want people to have to do that. But I think with the X-Men, I feel like it's going to be hard to explain and tell all the potential stories they've got with the X-Men in just a few movies that show up every 2-3 years. With the idea of Sadie Sink and Jean Grey being the main character of the MCU and going into this next phase post Secret Wars, I'm very, very cautiously trepidatious about this news. I think this is something that, the first bad news that I've heard, honestly, this is the first bad news I've heard on the X-Men MCU thing since Jeff Snyder said, a year ago that Sadie Sink was being eyed as a potential person to play Jean Grey. And I crashed out because I was like, I don't want YA kid X-Men again. Right? Like I want my X-Men to be adults. I want them to be, Avengers level superhero type heroes. And I was like, oh, you cast Sadie Sink. Now all of a sudden we're gonna get the kid X-Men. So I didn't necessarily want to see that. I've kind of moved on from that at this point. This is what we're getting. I just want to see the X-Men. I'm a fan of X-Men Evolution. You gotta let it play itself out. So I'm not really upset about that as much. Plus, I've heard some of the other names that they've thrown out for some of the other actors, and I'm like, okay, they're not going super young, right? They're going, 20s, mid to late 20s. So I'm fine with that. But this, I think, is also the second bit of bad news that I think I've gotten, because to me, I just feel like it's very alarming how like the last two. It's a risky choice considering the last two versions of the X-Men have tried to do the Dark Phoenix thing, right? And I don't know this. They're not saying that we're doing the Dark Phoenix thing, but if you're not doing the Dark Phoenix thing, what's the point of making Jean Grey the main character of the next phase of Marvel movies, right? And so that's why, to me, either they're doing the Dark Phoenix thing, which makes me trepidatious about that at all, because we've seen it done twice, and I know Marvel. Feige have traditionally had this mentality of we got to do things that haven't really been done before when it comes to Spider-Man and Fantastic Four. And so it would be strange for them to then with the X-Men feel like let's center it around something that was done twice and they just didn't do well. Of course, they did Galactus and they redid Galactus in a way that was more comic accurate and worked. They could certainly refurbish the Phoenix saga and the Phoenix storyline in a way that is much better. The one caveat that I'll give them is, look, maybe the only way to make the Phoenix saga good is to make Jean the actual main character, right? Because I think that was the difference with the Fox movies and why this is technically different. Because even though they have done the Phoenix saga twice, in both instances, the first trilogy is really a Wolverine trilogy. Jean's kind of a backgroundish character that they kind of shoehorn in the Phoenix saga at the end, right? Mm-hmm. And then the second trilogy, like it's really a Magneto and Professor X story that they kind of shoehorn in the Phoenix saga at the very end. And neither time did it work. They speed ran the storyline twice, and it didn't work. Maybe they're saying, look, this is a 10-year thing. And restart now, by the time she's 25 or whatever, when she's 35, right, and we get to the actual Phoenix thing, we'll have had 10 years of movies that,
Yeah.
now that character, that it'll be a way more tragic turn.
And now television too. To add to that, we've had television where she's showing up potentially. I want to ask you guys a question. I'll ask you, Sham, and you can answer this too, Kendall. Because when you were talking about this, I've said before, and I've asked that same question you've asked over and over again. Because I'm like, are we doing the Phoenix Saga again? Like, is that something you can do again?
We had this conversation the first time with the Dark Phoenix movie.
Yeah.
When we heard
Sophie
that was
Turner.
a sequel. Yeah, we heard that was a sequel to Apocalypse. We could pull up the tape, and we were like, "Really? We're doing Dark Phoenix again?
Yeah,
like this probably won't work." Yeah. And it was a flop.
But then I pose this question. I don't know if I necessarily I can answer it, but I'm not necessarily even seeking to answer it. It's really a question I'm curious what you guys think. Is the Dark Phoenix Saga like Ben Parker, Uncle Ben getting shot, and Martha and Thomas Wayne getting killed? Like, is it that
Krypton
integral? Is Krypton blowing up? Like, is it that integral to the X-Men that it's unavoidable? I think there's an argument to be made that it is, because that's what I thought. Because when you said that, I think, okay, well, why would they do this? And I was like, what if there's just no way around this? Like, what if there's just if it's the other way around, just to not have Jean Grey as part of the X-Men or part of the Mutant Saga, which is just also probably untenable. So maybe this is just unavoidable. Like,
not if you're going to
try to write, right? If you want to write around everything you want to do with Jean and what it means, what that character goes through. Again, is this Gwen Stacy, getting killed? Like, is this like I'm starting to just feel like maybe this is just part of superhero lore. It's it's important because it's one of those early deaths that like was like in your reading comics, you're like, holy shit, like somebody important just died. Like it's a massive moment. Now she also like represents kind of what became a caricature of like character deaths because she comes back, which was kind of one of the first times that happened. But I asked that question, Sham, and kind of feel free to jump in. Like, is this Uncle Ben? Is this the Waynes? Is this Gwen Stacy? Is this just like you have to do the Phoenix story because this is the story of the X-Men?
So that's a good question. I feel like what separates this from some of those other ones is, at least to me, and EJ, you probably know more about the specific like kind of comic chronology, but like I feel like this isn't necessarily an origin with her, even though the story kind of ties it to her origin, kind of, I guess, in ways. So, but it's not like an origin, whereas the other ones are origins. So you literally can't like not show that or not even like hint at it. Even though I feel like the MCU kind of handled handled it pretty well, but in terms of like just the Parkers and Spider-Man origin thing, but yeah, I feel like they could. I feel like this is a story that is definitely integral to the character. I feel like this is a story that that the fans will expect to see. I'm just gonna be honest. I feel like they would expect to see, and I feel like it would partially also be an expectation because it hasn't been done well yet. I think that's a big part of why people are going to want to see, myself included, even honestly, in part, I want to see what the MCU does with the Phoenix Saga. And I think I've even said on other shows, I want to see what the MCU fit for Phoenix is. I want to see a lot of things in regards to the MCU and how they do this like arc, because it hasn't really been done justice yet. And I'm sure the comic stands like feel probably much more even strongly about it. So like if they can give the Phoenix Saga like a Winter Soldier or Civil War treatment, then that is, that would just be legendary. So I think there's also a question to be said about, should they avoid the Phoenix Saga? I don't really think they should. I feel like if they wanted to take time with it, I think they should. I feel like if they wanted to do other things, maybe do the kind of intergalactic like Shi'ar, kind of thing, or try to tackle any of the other stuff first.
They
I
have
feel like
they
I
have
feel like they could do
the
that.
infrastructure. Like Fox didn't have the infrastructure. They tried to make it more alien coded with Dark Phoenix, but they just didn't have any of the story infrastructure to do any of that without it being so convoluted. Whereas like the MCU with all of the cosmic space stories that they've told, they can connect this in 80 million different ways to the larger MCU in a way to make it really cool. And they've already told stories like that, so we know that it can be done in a way that's visually interesting and visually stunning. While look, narratively, the MCU's had their swings and misses when it comes to stories, but they'll have again, if they take their time, it can't be any worse than Last Stand and Dark Phoenix. I mean, those are two bottom tier comic book movies ever. So
Yep.
I'd be shocked if their version. I mean, those movies are worse probably than any MCU movie. Period. So, I mean, so I'd be shocked that if that movie, if whatever they decide to do with this Phoenix character is worse than that. The honestly though, the big issue that I have with this is to be fair to My Time to Shine, like she's not necessarily reporting that they're doing the Phoenix Saga. We assume that that's what this entails when we say she's the main character. But my bigger problem is I don't know if this is smart business for Marvel to make Sadie Sink's Jean Grey the main character of the next saga. I think there's certainly been some excitement, some buzz, that's starting to percolate around this casting and around this character. Obviously, the Stranger Things IP is hot right now, and they're building off of that, and it's smart. But we're coming off of a time where we talked about, they had trouble, figuring out how do we replace Downey, how do we replace Evans, how do we replace Hemsworth, how do we replace Boseman, and they're now in a situation where, they obviously had to bring back some of these people, but who knows what the MCU looks like after Secret Wars, and if any of those people like Downey and Evans that are coming back and Hemsworth, if they're even gonna be a part of the MCU going forward. But I just think it's risky to then throw Sadie Sink's Jean Grey and say she's now one of those pillar characters that's going to be like the face of the MCU. Obviously, Holland's in a weird situation where half the time he talks, he pretends like he doesn't want to play Spider-Man anymore, but also, it's a weird contractual thing. But man, like, obviously, like, I think we would have traditionally thought, okay, you're getting the X-Men. The Fantastic Four, let's be frank, they did the Fantastic Four. I thought it was an awesome movie, but I don't really think anyone thinks any of those four characters could be those guys either, right?
Nope.
And so, I think a lot of people were probably hoping, or at least fans, or if you're Marvel, I think a lot of people were kind of expecting, like, okay, well, we're getting Wolverine, we're getting Cyclops, we're getting Professor X, we're getting Magneto. I don't know if, like, Jean and Storm and Rogue and Gambit, like, they're all a part of it. But I think if you're talking about replacing those people, I think it goes to those first three that I mentioned, Wolverine, Cyclops, and Professor X, potentially as people that, and Professor X isn't going to be the action hero, type person that could be the face of the MCU, but certainly if you have an actor with the kind of gravitas that Patrick Stewart and James McAvoy brought to the character, they could certainly be a guy that's a forefront kind of figure in the MCU, as could a Magneto potentially. But then obviously I think people want to see a Cyclops in that role. Wolverine's a big enough character that, again, if an actor, we know Jackman might be back, so it might still be Jackman in that role. But if it's not Hugh Jackman, that's a character that could do that. Like, I don't know if people or anybody is running to, like, we need Jean Grey to be that character. And certainly, again, if it's a younger Jean Grey actress, like, it's a lot of pressure. Like, we thought, Brie Larson was, like, at the top of the game when she was cast as Captain Marvel, and it didn't work. And so I like, and I don't want to make it it's not really a female actress thing, but it's just is that character, like, is that character and is the actress ready for all that?
I think,
and is that smart business?
Yeah, I mean, I would say in comparison to Brie Larson's Carol Danvers, I think Jean Grey is way more iconic and way more famous than Carol Danvers. Not even
For
close.
Sure.
So I think that is probably, that takes you a long way. Now Sadie may not be quite as hot as Brie was when that happened, but to me, I think I'm actually glad you mentioned Brie, because I think this brings me to an important point. Is we kind of forget that Sadie's in 2 movies already. Like, there's movies that have been written, one that's already been shot, that we don't know what she does in these movies. What probably Carol Danvers' Captain Marvel character missed was in what we call in wrestling, a real putting over kind of moment for them that establishes them as the new face. Like with Carol Danvers and Brie, a lot of it was where they were telling you, this is the most powerful Avenger. And like, at first, I think a lot of people were just willing to take it at face value because Marvel was so hot, they could tell us anything. They were like, all right, damn, let's go. All right, whatever, don't matter. Carol Danvers, let's go, let's do this. And then as we watch, I think a lot of people like, for the most part, Captain Marvel. But then we kind of, saw the Avengers movie, and like her role was actually a lot more muted than we expected. And the connection to the Avengers Infinity War movie, we thought was going to be a lot closer to it than it was, and it wasn't, So I think they end up losing a lot of momentum with that. I wonder when I read something like this, is this going to be a shift in how they approach this part of it? Because now they say, okay, we can say, and again, this is reporting. This is not them saying this. Remember back then, Kevin Feige was saying this kind of stuff. This is just stuff that's happening on background from, again, like My Time Shine Hello. But they're saying, we're not going to say anything that will kind of leak to this person. Hey, just this is the person that's the center of this. But they're going to have, what if Jean Grey is the person that takes out Doctor Doom? What if Jean Grey is the person? What if the Phoenix Force is what defeats Doctor Doom? Like, I think that would be in the biggest movie Marvel's ever done. I think that's a way to establish she's her, right? So if that is going to happen, I think that is probably what would help, would be to have that kind of star-making moment where you say, well, there's no denying who the person is moving forward. This is, you put, like, just like in wrestling, right? You want to put someone over, you get your young star in the face next to an icon. And what could be more iconic than someone face to face in the Marvel Cinematic Universe with Robert Downey Jr.? That it doesn't
put in with Spider-Man first. Yeah. Put in with Spider-Man and hope to start.
Right, yeah. There's no one bigger. So I think that is how you do it. And they might be able to, and I think because of that, they actually might be able to achieve that. Like, I'm not as like pessimistic at the idea of Jean being a main character in the MCU. That's another thing I see, similar to the TV news, I see with excitement. Because again, what that tells me is this is a mutant-centered saga, which is what we desperately want, which is what we desperately need, is what we've been asking for this entire time, as we've been talking about this show. And we feel like we've been, like, this has been withheld from us unnecessarily for whatever the reason. We still don't even know the reason, which is so crazy. And I'm hoping by the time this movie comes out, maybe we'll get some answers finally once we actually see Jean Grey on the screen. But we still have no idea and why this has been so long we haven't had any X-Men characters. So I see they could have told me that, Cannonball was going to be the main character of Mutant Saga. I probably would have still been excited. I'm like, all right, well, I know damn sure this is going to be a mutant-forward saga, and I can't wait. But, I mean, I know you maybe keep Jean out of that top 3, but, I mean, you're talking about number 4 or 5. Like, she's right there among the top, and you can certainly argue she's top 3. Because with her and Cyclops, you could almost argue that's a package deal for a lot of people. So I don't take it as a negative. Even if we talk about does Jean Grey have that kind of stature? One, I could argue she does, but even if she doesn't, I'd say, well, but this also means that mutants are at the center of the saga, and X-Men driven stories are at the center of what's driving the MCU moving forward, which is what is desperately
and again,
that will be the shakeup that this company has been searching for all these years.
So 2 things. One, I think you're right that I think personally, I've said it ad nauseum. I'm not a huge fan of My Time to Shine or Daniel RPK. I feel like they rage bait. I feel like they put out things. I feel like they're the same person. That's a whole nother conversation. But I feel like they rage bait. Wow. I feel like they put out stuff that, you kind of throw on the wall, see if it sticks. So I don't know if this is, I don't like, I feel like this is an incomplete, I almost don't believe it. Like, I feel like this
Yeah,
is an
that's why the
incomplete.
precursor on the lower third. People watching on YouTube, it says rumor. This is a rumor, not
Yeah,
an actual
rumor,
official report.
main
Right.
character in quotation marks,
Yeah,
whatever
main
that means.
characters in quotation marks. Yes, exactly.
But like, that to me is very vague, and I don't think it encompasses that. Like, it might also be Cyclops, right? Like, Cyclops could very well be one of the two main characters with Jean
That's what I
Grey. Which,
thought too.
if you sell it like that, I think a lot of people would that may be trepidatious about it, maybe feel like actually that's pretty smart, right? Because again, we didn't get Jean and Cyclops were the two characters that haven't been the face of the Long Storm. They haven't been the faces of the X-Men trilogies that we've had
Now
in the last two versions.
Now two X-Men franchises, exactly.
Yes. Like, Fox made the decision twice to be like, again, Wolverine and then Professor X and Magneto. Now, as somebody that likes those movies, I think they made the right choice. And that's where the conversation goes back to, like, if you're sitting down and you're Kevin Feige, is it we got to do things different? Like, again, I'm all for the Cyclops thing, and like I said, maybe Cyclops comes with Jean Grey, and that those aren't two things you could separate in terms of those characters. But maybe Fox made the right choice in saying, like, again, I think a lot of people don't want to see the Wolverine thing as much again, but obviously he's Wolverine, he's going to play a huge factor, and then of course, Professor X and Magneto did such a good job, and those are characters that are titans that could certainly lead a franchise. To me, it'll be interesting. I don't believe it personally. Like, I think there's a shred of truth. I don't not believe it because clearly she's the first X-Men we're going to see, right? So obviously she's going to be a huge character going forward. I don't discount it, but I don't think that this might not be news at all. Like, and I don't think she'll be that much different necessarily than maybe she was even in the last trilogy of the last two trilogies of movies, particularly the last one. So I don't think that much from it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm kind of leading with EJ. I don't. So, well, I kind of agree with both of you guys. I partially don't buy that she's like the Iron Man or what have you of this mutant saga. I don't particularly believe that because the X-Men have always been an ensemble. So
Right.
this is going to be an ensemble. Sadie Sink is going to be one of likely, I think, the main characters.
It reminds me of when these
yeah.
same people were putting out the rage bait on Sue Storm, saying Sue Storm's the leader of the Fantastic Four and First Steps, and people were losing their minds, raging out. And we see the movie, and I see what they were going for, and I see what the report, but like, come on now, like that was clearly just meant to get people upset.
Yeah, so it's just one of those things that just the phrasing, like you say, is just meant to kind of rile people up. But I don't have an issue with Jean Grey being a main character, like particularly with Sadie Sink playing the character. Sadie Sink and the likability is I don't know if I'd say instant, but it's very very quick with Sadie Sink on the screen. And then Jean Grey is also just in general a very likable character. This is a babyface, likable character. So I don't have any kind of issue, quite frankly, with Jean Grey being a main character in this saga. So I mean, for me, it's just a matter of, like you said, EJ, we're getting mutants. Jean Grey is front and center. And I think it's just enhancing the coolness factor because like, okay, so we already know we're gonna see Sadie Sink and Jean Grey interact with Spider-Man, so we're probably gonna see her interact with the other Avengers as well. Probably gonna see her interact with the Thor and all the other ones. Like, we're gonna see all the interactions that we've been wanting to see. So yeah, I mean, for me, it's all good vibes going forward.
Last thing, guys, before we move on, I do want to talk about the Supergirl trailer that came out a couple of weeks ago. So we got our second trailer for Supergirl. This is, of course, a movie coming out this summer. I'll say, man, I thought that this was a pretty great trailer. Kind of just one thing to note, like, I actually just recently finished, finally, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. Like, I finished the actual book. And I'm glad I finished it before I watched this trailer because I like the story that they're going to tell kind of comes together a lot easier when you've read the book than simply kind of taking it just at face value. But I really liked what they established with kind of telling the story of, kind of why Kara is the way she is. In the movie you saw with Superman, and then some of what you saw maybe in the first trailer, you still kind of don't get it. But I think they really try to emphasize this being a young girl, young woman that is, someone who is still trying to deal with the grief of losing her family and losing not just Krypton but also Argo City, and what came with that. I I thought uh, showing more of the Krypton stuff was important. They did that. I thought showing more of Jason Momoa's Lobo character, which I thought was interesting because, just for another disclaimer, he's not in the book. Lobo's not in the book at all. So it's kind of interesting to be like how he's very easy to seamlessly put in, just given knowing the
Is
story.
he a stand-in?
But
Is he a stand-in for someone else, or do you think
no,
they're just kind of throwing that?
no, I'm being real. Like I was like, there's no, you're not even a stand-in for him. Like oh, they didn't put this guy in, but they put him in what was the movie where Better Ray Bill was in Hulk versus, that was stand-in
Yeah.
for not Hulk versus, our Planet Hulk. He was in Planet Hulk, and that was stand-in for Silver Surfer was that character in the book. Like there is no one for one with Lobo. So, oh, that should be I don't know, Mongol or whatever. Like there's nothing. It's just he's, I don't know why. But again, like the story, you could see why he would show up or why it would make sense that they would run into him. But I think he's gonna add to the story. I think Momoa looked great as Lobo. He definitely fits the role. And I thought that this trailer did what the first one didn't, and I think was important, was they showed a lot more action. I think we had to get more action sequences. The book is not necessarily this super action-packed book, but there are some beautiful panels of action that you actually see kind of play out in this trailer. You're like, oh, okay, if they do that in this movie, that's going to look freaking cool. And I just think they upped the ante when it came to explaining the kind of the character Supergirl, and why she is the way she is, and also showing that this is still a badass character that we're going to see plenty of cool action with. I thought they nailed the second trailer. I thought the first trailer was pretty good, but I thought this one was a major step up. So I was a big fan of it. And I said that when I did the 40 Days and Counting podcast. Curious, Sham, what do you think of the second Supergirl trailer?
I agree. I agree in that I thought it was much better than the first trailer. I thought it was good. I thought it was a good trailer. I'd say I'm still like cautiously optimistic. I don't know. Obviously I don't know much about the story. I'm very unfamiliar with these, Ravager like villains that it seems like we're gonna get in this movie. So, I gotta see like, oh, are they
Or like, where's
legit?
Stallone?
Like, are they legit? Like, am I gonna really,
I'm Mary
am I
Poppins,
gonna,
y'all.
am I gonna really like buy like, okay, like this is a, because with this Supergirl, I'm like, is this a Superman level threat? Like, is this, I know Lobo obviously, but like, so I gotta see, and they may be holding that close to the vest, and that's cool. I'm down to see whatever they got to show me, but um, but I thought the action looked cool. I like that they showed, some of the origin and things like that. I like that they're going to show that in the movie from Supergirl's perspective. I think that's important. I think that's something I was hoping to see, because I do like seeing that disparity. Even though I know, oh, Krypton blew up, again, I get it. But like, always think it's interesting seeing it from Supergirl's perspective. I always find that a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, because she was a kid, like she was not a
Right.
baby, so she had people she loved, people she knew, people she interacted with. She was able to see kind of the chaos that ensued prior to Krypton blowing up. And again, like what that trailer showed was that it wasn't even just Krypton; it was also Argo City, which you see gets kind of like encapsulated when Krypton explodes, and she's a part of that. And the book, I'm not spoiling anything, but the book goes into like what that process was like and how that went, and again, all the storylines in terms of how she becomes, who she becomes, makes sense. You see her, carrying, coffins and stuff. Like there was a real kind of after effect of Krypton blowing up that almost becomes a second death, and they start to show that a little bit. Say, okay, this is why you see someone who maybe does want to just go party, just get drunk, and just live their life, kind of aimlessly, because they've lost everything in a way that's a lot more personal than it is for even someone like Kal-El.
Yeah. And I thought that was, I thought that was, or at least it looked good in the trailer. So I'm looking forward to seeing that portrayed on the big screen, and I'm looking forward to seeing Crypto again. I do find her relationship with Crypto endearing, so I thought that translated well in the trailer as well. So yeah, I thought it was a solid. So I'm looking forward to seeing the movie.
Kendall, thoughts on the trailer?
Yeah, I thought this was a much better trailer as well. I agree with Shamari. I like what this means for the actual movie. Um, I don't know. This is not necessarily a trailer that makes me say one way or the other it was going to be great or it's going to be terrible, but it definitely gets me more hopeful for the movie. It doesn't feel as like much of a Guardians ripoff as the first trailer was trying to cut. I think DC Studios, Gunn probably sent whatever company he's cutting the trailer, definitely sent them some notes and said, all right, let's make this a lot less Guardians of the Galaxy like we can.
Yeah.
And it definitely worked. The song they played, the Motown song from Jimmy Ruffin, I've got that on my playlist. So when I heard it, I was like, hey. Yeah, I had that going into it, so I was like, I was pleasantly surprised, but it worked with the vibe they were going for. I think Shamari hit the nail on the head. The big question is going to be the villains for sure. That as the case with a lot of these movies, right? And as we know with Marvel, especially, and James Gunn, even like you can make a good superhero movie with a whack villain. I mean that's the tried and true method of superhero movie making is great superhero movie with bad villain. So it's not going to be the end of the world if the villains are lame or kind of just random, but that's what they look. That's how they look so far. I don't want to judge the book by its cover, but that's kind of how they seem kind of generic alien, these say Ravager type guys, but we'll see. Again, that's not going to mean that the movie's not going to be great. Obviously, they're adapting a specific story. Sometimes you would hope that, especially with the second movie of a franchise that you're trying to build, that you would pick out somebody in the DC universe that's got a little bit more cachet as a character, a little more equity. You mentioned Mongol or somebody, you throw out anybody that, kind of people recognize that maybe could get people more excited. But again, it doesn't mean I haven't seen the movie yet, so I can't say they're bad. But trailer doesn't do a great job of highlighting them. The other interesting question is just going to be what's the state and the manner. Well, first of all, how many flashbacks will we get to Krypton? And if we do, what is Krypton like, right? Because I think that was a big question coming out of Superman.
That's
and
a good point.
our brother Henry, that was our brother Henry made that point where he was like, I'm curious to see what this Krypton looks like after Superman, because what are they like? And I'm like, I told him I don't know if we're gonna get much of an answer to that. I feel like they'll play it pretty straight in this movie, and I feel like that's a Man of Tomorrow answer that we'll get more than it is a Supergirl answer. But if they're gonna show as much of Krypton as they have in these trailers, like you kind of feel like it's unavoidable one way or the other.
I mean, shout out to our brother Henry. That's a great point because they definitely positioned the Kryptonians as people that were kind of crappy. Like right. There's no other way to describe it. So again, Kara was like was like a teenager or
she would remember
adolescent, so she would remember, and that does maybe lend itself also to maybe some like maybe she's not on Earth enough to really care what the Earthlings think of Kryptonians, and perhaps maybe she's also just not around enough. I don't know.
And she's not communicating. We see her talking to
Right.
whatchamacallit, but maybe she's not communicating and not with him. Maybe that's part of the storyline.
Clark is trying to reach out to her, but she's
right.
not really doesn't seem to be reaching out to him. So maybe she's also unaware, maybe of kind of what the dialogue now is of Kryptonians after what happened with Lex and Clark. But that is a great point. Is if we see the Kryptonians being like kind of just normal folk that maybe were just like naive and didn't realize that their plan was gonna blow up and that was it, and they didn't seem like people who said they should dominate other worlds and take wives and stuff, then that would maybe feel a little weird. It's like, all right, like you hear this like the whole, and I can like speak to this because it's in the trail. Like again, a lot of this feels like a lot of this dealing with Kara's grief with this iteration with these people having been lost to her. Again, if they were barbarians, then it's like, well, does that hit the same? And it's a great question. I don't know if it does, to be honest. Like, it's why I've said from the beginning, I don't buy for a second that was not a doctored video done by either Lex Luthor or Brainiac. And I think Brainiac is my main answer for what I think it was. It feels like a very Brainiac thing that would be said. And I'm gonna keep saying that, and I've been still firm on that. And I think I'm going to be proven right in a year from now, when that movie comes out. But I look at that, and I'm like, that's a great point. Like, how do you present the Kryptonians given the shadow you cast on them with how you did Superman? I think it is a great point.
It's like the biggest thing in the movie. It's the biggest thing in the movie, and then literally the next DC movie that we get is going to take place. Part of it's going to take place on Krypton, and we're not gonna talk about it. Like, they have to. Or, I mean, maybe they don't have to, but again, if they don't, people are going to ask a lot of questions going into Man of Tomorrow about what's the deal with the Kryptonians, which they're going to answer, I think, for sure in a Man of Tomorrow, but I think Supergirl has got to be something as well.
And then on the villain... Go ahead, Kendall. I mean, Shaq.
No, I was going to say, are we going to get these, like, Viltrumite Kryptonians that
right, exactly.
that we're all wondering
Jor-El Omni-Man.
Yeah, I just took the words out of my mouth there from earlier. I was going to say, yeah, I'm like, you presented Viltrumite kind of people. Like, are we supposed to feel bad that they got blown up? Like, it sounds harsh, but that's just a real thing that you present with how you presented them. It's not a choice I made. It's the choice that they made. Like, now you're making the viewer make these tough decisions that I don't think are necessarily good storytelling decisions to make. And on the villain front, what I will say is, Krem of the Yellow Hills is the villain. I'm ready for people to not like this villain. I think the original story isn't really about the villain, which is why it's an interesting story that they're adopting. Like, I'm very fascinated to see if this is going to work. It works as a book, 100%. Some books don't work as movies. It's just reality. So, I'm like, this could be a great idea for a book. It's why Tom King is one of his best works, but it doesn't mean that it works great as an actual movie or as something to do in live action. So, I don't know if Krem will work as the main villain of a Supergirl movie. Like, one of you guys was mentioning, like, oh, I was looking for a kind of Superman or Supergirl threat. There's a dynamic that some of these are yellow or red suns, so that kind of changes her powers, obviously. So there's that aspect of it. But like, I'm just telling you, like, he's just not that. That's not his role in this. That's not his point in this. Like, he's effective for what the story that's being told, for sure. But it truly is a story that is a deep dive into who is the person that is Kara Zor-El and what makes her special. That's the story. So, and like when Kendall mentioned the point that, hey, you can have great movies that don't have great villains. Like, I just think that I am mentally preparing for that to be the case. They've already made some like physical alterations to Krem to make him look more menacing than he looks even in the comics. I have no idea. I don't feel one way or another about it. I don't know if it's good or bad. He does look different though. He looks way more like weird and menacing. In the comics, he just has like red hair and a beard. He looks kind of like a pirate. He doesn't have all these weird scales and red eyes. Like, none of those are a thing. So I don't know if that's them feeling the pressure of feeling like, well, this guy's got it. We got to give him more teeth than simply just being like, just a rando guy just who works for the king of this world. Like, we need to do more for him. So I think that's going to be I'm preparing for people to be like, that's the one thing I like about this movie, and they just might not like it. And it might not be something they can solve. I don't think it necessarily means though that he can't be effective in his role for what the story is trying to tell.
All right. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think that's fair. Like, I mean, you are right in that we've already seen many movies, many of these superhero movies that don't have like fantastic villains, but they're still very good movies. Um, I will say that I feel like that does put a bit of a cap on how good this movie probably can be, because the best superhero movies that we see usually have at least good, if not great, great
Yeah,
villains.
100%.
So if you have just a super
Yeah.
forgettable villain, then I mean, unless the movie is like a Guardians in that it's more like a comedy, or
Yeah,
it's kind of
Yeah,
a
I was just
comedy
thinking
kind
yeah.
of thing.
Guardians is like the
Guardians is
peak.
one of those movies that overcame that, right? I'm trying to think of any
Yeah,
other great movies.
but that one was like
You
an
could argue,
ensemble.
you could argue Wonder Woman overcame that. I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't hate the Wonder Woman film, but I understand.
Ares.
Like,
Yeah. Some people liked Ares a lot.
yeah, I
Some
thought he was fine.
people, it wasn't
I mean, I didn't hate him.
wasn't a very
I mean, he
out
wasn't
there film.
great.
I mean, he
You
kind of
know,
only
like,
reveals him. I mean, he kind of only reveals himself at
yeah,
the end, and it's basically
yeah.
Yeah.
someone
It's
fights
not a
him.
villain-led movie at all. Like, it's
No,
not,
it's
Right.
not.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's what I mean. Is that like it's
Oh,
not a
okay.
villain led
Yeah.
movie. You know, like not
Right.
yeah.
Right.
It's not
Right.
to say that he's bad. It's not a. In fact, now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like it's very similar to Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. Like he serves a purpose, and it drives the story. But is this again like Now I don't think that someone has a power level of Ares where they can go toe to toe with Wonder Woman at full strength and it be believable. I don't think that's the case with Krem. But Krem is part of a group of the Barans. Like he's part of a group of space pirates, basically. So it's not necessarily him. It's him and a bunch of other people and a bunch of other things that end up being like obstacles in Supergirl's way. So that's what I mean when I say like it's like like that's a movie that I think of as well that overcame that, because that movie was about Supergirl. I mean, Wonder Woman and Trevor. It wasn't really about Ares. That was how that movie drove. So it can happen, but I agree it does potentially put a cap. I don't disagree. I'm just making the point that there are a couple that have overcome that, but it is a harder feat. I think it's an easier story to tell. To simply be good guy versus bad guy. And if we make bad guy really cool and with a lot of different dynamics and complexities, that makes it even more interesting. Like that's an easier story I think to tell than be like, yo, we're gonna like just push this as a kind of a character perspective story, and there's a conflict, so therefore there's a villain, but like we don't need to know a lot about him. There's not a lot of depth to him that really matters. It's harder to do that, but it can be done.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully, hopefully the movie's great. With the Superman movie having such a great villain in Lex Luthor, I feel like this movie, I don't even know if we're going to be really comparing the movies like in that way, but I feel like this movie kind of has an uphill battle maybe to try to be as good, because I thought the first Superman movie, I thought that Superman movie was
That
great.
honestly is, I think,
I think it's top tier.
thing. That is honestly going to be the big, I won't say issue for this movie, but it goes back to what my issue with them even making this movie and it being the second movie on their slate. And I don't really know if that was smart business by DC Studios, but at the same time, that's going to be the conversation: is how do the people that ingest this and consume this movie, how are they looking at it? Because I don't think James Gunn is putting this movie out there and doing this particular story to like sell tickets or make it this like crazy. Like, I think he wants this to be a really good movie and a really good story. Like, I don't think this is about.
I think he really
making $1 billion.
I think he really likes the story, and he's like,
Yeah,
I
and
want to
thinks
make
it
this
could work as a
story
movie.
a movie. I think it's purely almost like an artistic push.
Yeah.
I agree
Right.
with that.
Just like Clayface, right? Like, whatever their idea is for Clayface, it's not to sell tickets or build the universe out. It's because he thinks this, whatever script they got for Clayface sounded good and it made sense. And so he's going to test whether or not that's a smart way of starting up a movie franchise. Marvel clearly didn't take that approach, right? They didn't say, what's the best script we got? They just said, we're doing Iron Man, Hulk, Captain America, Thor. and that's just what we're starting. Then we're doing the Avengers, and then we're doing Iron Man again. Like they weren't so picky about the stories they were telling. They're taking a different approach at DC, and James Gunn's had a lot to say about Marvel's approach to certain things in the past and how they want to do things different. We'll see if this works or not, and whether or not the audience, again, how they respond to it, because it could be a great movie. And if it is a great movie, then I think they'll be served right. I know people like to judge people in the box office. Look, this isn't my business. It's not my money. So whether or not they make money isn't really. I don't care how much money David Zaslav's getting on his deal with Paramount. Is
the only reason I care about box office is just ensure that more of these movies get made.
The health of the industry, yeah.
Right. Because that's the end of the drive with more movies get made.
Yes, 1,000%. And so ultimately, if this movie is great, like it'll be a win in my book, no matter what, right? If this movie is well received critically and by the audience, then it's a win more than something like Venom, or the Super Mario Galaxy, apparently that is going to make $1 billion, but wasn't very good. That's the tough thing that that's the tough thing you gotta kind of balance.
No question about it, man. But this is the movie that's coming out. What is it? I had it up. What is it, in July, I believe, or June? June 26th. June 26th is the release date for Supergirl. So we're coming up now, only a couple months away, basically, from Supergirl hitting theaters. That'll be the second DCU movie that we have in this universe. So can't wait to see how that shakes out, man. But that's going to do it for this edition of New Generation Hero Talk. I want to thank you guys so much for checking us out. Of course, if you like this episode, you can catch all episodes of Hero Talk wherever you get your podcasts. Just search New Generation Podcast Network. Also, to watch the video version of this episode and catch all of our video content, just subscribe to our YouTube channel, New Generation Media. Make sure you follow us on social media. Follow us on Twitter, New Generation Pod, on Instagram, New Generation Podcast. Make sure you follow us individually on social media. You can find me on X, EJ_Stewart, Instagram and TikTok, X and EJ, Kendall on X, New Gen Ken, and Shamari on Snapchat, MCSham22. That'll do it for now. I'm EJ Stewart for Kendall, for Shamari. Take it easy, guys. Peace.